spook easily startled.
Have you ever explored the depths of fear? Have you ever wondered what depravity dwells within the imagination of a storyteller that prompts them to exhume horrors untold and expose those horrors to unsuspecting audiences? Some are repulsed, and some are shaken. However, there are those who are invigorated. So to those demented souls, we invite you to journey inward into the dark bowels of human imagination. Press play, and you will discover what's in the podcast.
And welcome to another edition of What's in the Podcast. And today we are going to get creepy with it. Today we're bringing in another edition of Age-Old Fears, the section of the show where we talk about all the archetypes of horror that just and why they freak us right the hell out. And today we're bringing back the guy who helped kick off this feature. You know him. I love him. Well, we all should. We're obligated. I even am going to lobby Congress to make it a law to love this man. Matt Konopka at Killer Horror Critic. Welcome back to the show.
Well, I love you too. Thank you for having me back to talk about the things that scare the ever-loving shit out of us.
Absolutely. And today, this is one that I suppose when I was a kid, I like probably a lot of kids had a paralyzing fear, specifically of spiders. But funny enough, I got over the fear as I guess you could say exposure therapy, but I did a whole science fair project on spiders. But so that actually kind of so because of that, I actually learned to kind of admire them as time went on. But the idea of the fear surrounding spiders, but then ultimately, as I delved deeper into it, discovering how much bugs on the whole freak people out, that immediately got me, because when you look at the history of horror cinema, there is an entire side of it all devoted to how terrifying the idea would be if bugs, no matter how big or small, strike back against us. So today, now, yes, I was thinking of devoting it strictly to spiders, but then I was like, no, we need to widen the scale and talk about all things creepy and crawly, and let's talk about bugs on the whole. And we're not just talking about giant bugs, we're talking about tiny ones too. So for you, where do you stand on the topic?
Terrified. I don't know. Yeah, I've always been a wuss when it comes to bugs, admittedly. They've been a part of scarring my childhood forever. So basically, I'm trying to remember exactly if anything sort of kicked it off or anything like that. I remember being young. For example, ticks. Ticks horrified me as a kid. My grandparents have a cabin in Wisconsin, and we used to go up there and visit every summer when I was a kid. And there was one year we went fishing at a pond, and I don't know, I must have been 7 or 8 years old, and my sister and I are just being dumb kids and like rolling through the grass and everything. And we get back to the cabin, and I'm changing my clothes, and all of a sudden I find like these black insects all over me, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I go run to my parents, and they're like, oh, that's a tick. And they describe to me like, oh yeah, it sits in there and sucks on your blood, and you got to like burn it out, otherwise its head gets stuck in you. And it just the whole idea just really freaked me out, of like, oh, there's an insect completely devoted to burrowing itself inside of me.
Yeah, actually, I share your loathing of ticks. In fact, I used to live in a rural suburb, and we had a very large backyard. We had dogs. Well, one time out of the blue, we had 2 dogs that were strictly outdoor dogs, so they stayed there all the time. Unfortunately, our Cocker Spaniel just got completely covered with them, to the point where the ticks practically replaced the fur.
Oh, Jesus.
And no matter what we did, even the vets couldn't do anything for it. So unfortunately, the poor dog, I think inevitably just from the trauma of that, just never recovered.
Wow.
Inevitably, we discovered the only way to get rid of the ticks was we had to get geese.
Geese, really? Because they eat them, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it, because they eat the ticks. And I don't know if ticks have some kind of like communication between each other where they're like going, "Oh no, guess who's coming to dinner?" And they
the
all,
geese are here.
yeah, the geese are here, and they decided to bail. And after like about maybe a couple months with the geese in the backyard, the ticks were no more. Ticks like disappeared. So, but the fact that we had this really sweet cocker spaniel that just got completely devoured practically by
Yeah.
these ticks was like something that stayed with me. So,
God, yeah, that's
um,
awful.
yeah, and that leads me to like the to understand why people hate bugs and why people loathe them. And I think that's why pretty much I'm trying to think about when the first real legit instance of bugs on cinema as the antagonist. I'm gonna take it all the way back to probably them as
I
the like
think
the earliest example.
them's
But
def them's definitely up there. I think that a lot of that certainly came around in the 50s, if I remember correctly,
mhm.
because that's when we sort of saw like the atomic age of horror, you know.
Oh yeah,
So you saw filmmakers playing around with giant insects in general. You know, speaking of spiders, like Tarantula from 1955.
Tarantula, Earth
Uh,
versus the Spider, the
mhm,
Deadly Mantis.
yeah,
The Deadly Mantis was a great example of that.
yeah,
The
and
Black
them's
Scorpion.
iconic. I mean, them I think is, you know, the the most highly praised one from that era in terms of giant
Yeah,
bugs, for good
and
reason.
yeah, I think for me, when I was a kid, and as I said before, like for me with spiders, I'm wondering if my fear of them. Now we lived in a trailer before our house got finished, so we did get a lot of really like big brown ones that like skittered around in our trailer. So whenever I
Mm.
saw one, it did freak me out, and I'm wondering if it had to do with the just the way it moved. But for me, when I saw one as a little kid, I screamed. I just bolted. And my brothers, sadistically, when they found one, man, they grabbed me and just like held me in place, and then hey, look over there.
Oh, of course, yeah. Gotta
Yeah,
love
because they were
siblings.
like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Especially if they vote the wrong way.
Yeah.
But so I think there's definitely something raw and visceral about just the inhuman nature of bugs on the whole and why they freak us out. I
Well,
mean,
I think a lot of it just comes down to, you know, unfortunately, unfortunately for humans, it's very common to just sort of fear anything that we deem ugly or unnatural. You know, like it really struck me the other day. I actually ended up writing about it in a thing that will come out soon, but it struck me the other day when everyone was talking about Starship Troopers on social media again.
mhm.
And there were a bunch of comments from people saying things like, "Oh, you know, those bugs deserve to die. They're so hideous." And you know, knowing that that film really is, the bugs are like a metaphor for other civilizations that were essentially committing genocide on. You know,
Yeah,
it really just struck me like how inhumane humans sort of are towards insects, and
yeah,
vice versa. You know, I mean, the thing about insects I think that unsettles people is that they're not, you know, they're not like the mammals and things that we're familiar with that are cute and cuddly and sort of have, you know, different sort of humanity to them. Insects are inhumane. You know, they don't
yeah,
they don't love, they don't, you know, kind of have a lot of those emotions that us humans do. Like I always think of Jeff Goldblum's The Fly speech
yeah.
where, you know, he talks about insect politics and
Insects,
how insects don't have
yeah.
politics. You
They're
know.
very brutal,
Yeah.
and a lot of the, yeah, they seem to operate on a very specific, almost automatic, almost in an automaton fashion. Like they have a specific role that they have in their respective hierarchy, and they just
Mhm.
operate based on that.
Right,
And I think,
exactly.
and I think some of those ideas are the things that we can't handle. But I think but like and I think you're right, quoting The Fly like that, because insects do have just a brutal lifestyle in terms of just the way they live and also the way they feed and the way they survive. I mean, a
Hmm.
lot of times in order to survive, they have to commit. If they had any form of a conscience, they would commit acts that, if they had a conscience, they'd feel horrible about.
Right.
But for them, this kind of destruction is life. I mean, they're in order for some species of insects to propagate, they have to embed their spawn in the carcass of another
Yeah.
I mean, that's how some species of wasps propagate, is that that's how they have to do it. So
And if
I
you're a male praying mantis, you're basically saying, hey, sex is worth death. Because the female cuts the head off
oh
afterwards.
yeah, that had better be some like amazing goddamn sex to be willing to die for
I
that.
I mean, you're not going to know any better, right? Because it's your first and only time. So
Oh yeah, it's definitely not like one of those things where they can brag to the guys at the coffee machine. Like
yeah, it's not like, oh, it finally happened. It's
it finally happened. He miraculously escapes, and then he gets to the coffee. Guys, you're complete. Guys,
well, and all their
guys.
friends are looking around like, hey, did you see John finally got some? He's dead now, but can't wait until we join the party.
I wonder if this is, here's a thought. I'm wondering if it's because of our knowledge of bugs and how they live and the things they do in order to survive. I wonder if that's a major element of our fears, is that our knowledge makes us scared of the idea of what these creatures would do if they were large enough to make us the prey. Because we, in our humanity, in our hubris, are hell bent to believe that we are dominant, that we are like the top of the food chain. But deep down, we know that if any other of these predators, ones that are manageable given their size, if they get to a size that is unmanageable, we'd be fucked.
I mean, let's just be honest about it. Almost any insect, arachnid, whatever, if they were our size, we're not winning a fist fight with them.
No.
Humans are not designed to survive necessarily against other species with our body types. Our survival depends on our ingenuity.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Whereas
yeah.
all of these other creatures, their survival comes from just how they're built genetically. So
How they're built, but also how they are one with their environment
yeah,
as well. I think that's the ultimate failing of humanity, is the fact that we are not at one with our environment, whereas all of these insects, all these bugs, all these creatures are 100% in harmony with the environment and the way they are able to survive. And if one is thrown out of whack with the other, then the entire environment gets thrown out of whack. I mean, of course, the famous thing about spiders is that as much as people hate them, we need them, because without them, crops would be destroyed. Everything would be thrown out of whack, because these bugs take it upon themselves to or live entirely to, as South Park says, thin out the numbers, Ned.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a delicate ecosystem. I hate mosquitoes, but we need them for other species to flourish. So because they provide food and that sort of stuff. So
yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what the hell we need wasps for, because the damn things keep swarming outside our doors in our previous apartment. And I'm like going, and here I am coming out with John Wick with the 2 cans of Raid, and a wasp go like actually, no, not like John Wick, like Max Payne. So I'm going into slow-mo.
Doing little dives and everything.
Oh, well, not too many dives. I was on the 2nd floor. But
I think part of it too is that, well, I mean, obviously I think as kids, our fear from them just comes from the fact that they're creepy. I don't think it goes much deeper than that when you're a child, but I think that subconsciously maybe there's a certain thing to it where, I think we associate insects and arachnids with the darkness, and we're kind of taught that you fear things in the darkness, or that's what we learned growing up, because that's where you find a lot of these things. It's not like I just look at my floor right now and there's ants or something crawling around. I mean, at least I hope not. These things often surprise us. You see a spider when you move a box and, oh shit, it's hiding behind the box, or you open a shower curtain and, oh my god, something's on the ceiling, or it just that's the thing, is they're always hiding. The insects by their very nature are living jump scares. Because you never expect to see them where you end up seeing them.
Yeah, in your common places where you are in your own environment, and this thing is infringing upon that environment.
Right.
And
that's what it feels like. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it doesn't help that a lot of them move in ways that you're not used to, and you don't know its intention when you move it. we're gonna go ahead and get on into it. But part of the other impetus behind us doing this particular one is because we've had not one but two spider films come out within the same month, even though they've been on the festival circuit. We had both Sting and Infested coming out, but Infested in particular I want to focus on because I think for as many giant bug movies as the Asylum likes to trot out, not a single one of them, I think, in any way understands how legit the creep factor of the way spiders move. And I got to give it to Infested, man. One of the major freak out aspects of that movie is understanding how fast they can be when threatened.
Yep.
Yeah. Just so you can also consider this episode kind of like a capsule review of that movie because because I will say when people say it's the best since Arachnophobia, I'm willing to agree, but I even think it goes a lot further than Arachnophobia in terms of just, it's not enough just to have one spider in your shower, but what happens if you're trapped in the shower and a whole bunch of them start swarming out of the drain, and it's like,
right.
Yeah,
so and I've made those comparisons with Arachnophobia as well, and the way I see it is that Arachnophobia to me is the better film. It's the one that I enjoy more. But Infested, I sort of look at as Arachnophobia without the camp. Infested is meant to be scary and nothing else. It's not trying to be funny. It's not trying to be humorous.
That movie is serious as a heart attack, that movie.
Yeah, it is purely intent on the very fear of spiders. And like you mentioned, it does understand the quickness of them. I think that's one of the things that works so well with it. Not to mention the fact that they use real spiders wherever possible.
Absolutely. Actually, well, one bit I loved that I just freaking adored was how the character, I think it was Jordy, was trying to trap it in a cup, and he's doing it the way you're supposed to do it. But I love how he's barely even nudging the thing, and even though the spider's just making little, he's not even lunging at. I love how the spider's not even lunging at him, but the movie was doing the one thing that we all do in real life, where even when we're doing it right and actually looks like you're about to get it, the spider just makes a completely benign movement, a single movement, just looking in a different direction. And he's like,
well, yeah, because you don't know what it's about to do.
You don't know what it's going to do. And I loved how the movie is, of course, establishes that these spiders are crazy venomous. So yeah, you're terrified about the idea that the next move that thing makes could be jumping on you and sinking its fangs into you and killing you. So it's like, the movie gets it. I think I've never seen a movie so understanding of people's paranoia about spiders than that one. I mean, Arachnophobia did a fine job, though I will say the nature of his arachnophobia is fascinating. The idea that he just freezes and just becomes paralyzed. I've seen people freak out and run out of the room. I've never seen one just involuntarily freeze.
Yeah, it all depends on the degree of the paranoia, I guess. Like people legitimately diagnosed as arachnophobic, I can see why that would be the case, is you just freeze, because it's a fear so deep you can't move. But yes, Infested, I think, looks at the idea of arachnophobia and basically incorporates every worst fear that you have when dealing with spiders. I mean, you end up with spiders in shoes, you end up with spiders crawling out of drains. The one that really got me, speaking of their quickness, was when they're trying to, swat at them with the broomstick, and the spiders just run up the broomstick.
Runs up the broomstick,
and it turns the weapon against them.
Yeah, or just in general, just the natural fear of when you're running through a corridor or something like that, and because cobwebs themselves are so translucent and so minuscule, when you run into them, imagine now being forced to run through a corridor caked with them, just all around the walls, and the lighting is terrible.
Oh yeah, and this is the interesting. By the way, one of my favorite scenes in the film is the hallway scene.
Yeah, the hallway sequence is masterful, because again, and actually this is like the skin of a rink of spider movies for me, because this did tap into a lot of those things that freaked me out about spiders when I was a kid, because we had a garage, my dad's workshop, all the corners were caked with cobwebs, and you could still see like big black spiders like in the corners. I mean, they definitely didn't look like widows, but they were definitely like the kind that you still didn't want to fuck with. So
Yeah.
it's like to see an entire corridor fully caked in cobwebs, and even some stretching across the hall. And the idea that you're forced to have to walk through that, it's like,
Yeah.
that's freaky.
I watched that scene and was just like, no, no, I'm just gonna lay down and die right there. Just can't
I
do it.
lament Shudder is so good about putting their movies in theaters before, especially like their hyped movies. It made me sad that that one didn't, because I would have loved to have been in a movie theater to watch so many people like squirm in their seats.
Yeah,
I
I'm
would have
really
sat
bummed
in
that
the
I missed
back.
that at festivals.
Yeah, yeah. Sting was fun in theater, so but um so oh, I kind of we kind of jumped ahead to spiders, but I feel like let's kind of take a step back though. Let's
Sure.
go ahead and go back to some of the other bugs, because in my research, yeah, we have a bunch. Like spiders seem to be the one that seem to be represented in movies like the most, because and I think the reason why is because, and actually we'll get into it a little bit later, but I think a lot of it is because spiders, even by their very nature and what they do, is pretty fearsome. But going back to them, I suppose the another reason why that is still widely considered to be like one of the greatest giant bug films of all is because the way ants are has been commonly associated with communism. And coming out in the 50s, like they did, our fear of the atomic age, people associate the social hierarchy of ants and kind of associate that with the Red Scare. The
Yep.
idea that that they're going to swarm and they're going to eat you alive and they're going to take us over, kind of thing like that. So
Right.
I kind of,
It's an unthinking colony that, doesn't associate with individualism.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's the reason why a lot of people still hold in high esteem, is that it's more than just a big giant bug movie. It's like a social allegory movie, and I think that's another factor why some of them stand out. I think another one that kind of works in that regard would actually be the creep show segment. They're creeping up on you.
Oh, yeah. My well, I guess I wouldn't call it my favorite segment of Creepshow, but it is the one that freaks me out the most.
Mm. It's
But yeah, the
yeah.
idea of the rich, the wealthy, the 1% being eaten by the masses, right? That they deem cockroaches in their point of view.
Yeah, it's also the idea that the more you push, like the more that even the wealthy, even in their ivory tower, even with all their wealth and all their resources and all their technology, ultimately in the end, they keep pissing off the lower classes. The lower class are going to rise up against them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I always find it funny when people are like keep politics out of horror, because it's like you you realize that on its very own existence, horror is political, right? Like it's
Oh yeah, no, I just got into it with my friends Natalie and Kat recently, where we were talking about sexual assault and horror in a previous one, and how we were like saying, guys, subtlety's had its day, and the reason why we're not being subtle anymore is because you're not getting the message, dickheads.
right.
So guess what?
Well, you're not getting the message, and you're seeing things from different point of views. It's you're gonna
Yeah,
get different commentary on, I
yeah,
don't want to get into this topic, but it's like you're gonna get different commentary on sexual abuse when you're seeing voices put it on film that aren't a bunch of straight white men,
exactly.
like you're gonna see things presented differently. So, which is
Yeah,
why I
so it was
personally, and it's a whole other conversation, but it's why I personally really love where we're at with horror, because you are going to see a lot of new sort of inventive movies, just from the mere fact that we're getting more voices. One
exactly.
thing, going back and invested really quick, that I love about that movie is, even though I don't think the theme was really hammered as strongly as it could have been, I think it gets a little sloppy towards the end. But I do love the incorporation of kind of looking at sort of social economics and like how the underprivileged are kind of boxed in this scenario. They're kind of treated like insects themselves, because they get forced to be trapped inside this building with these spiders that are going around killing them. And it's that
Yeah,
idea that like we kind of look at the underprivileged, or society as a whole looks at the underprivileged as like insects to pay no mind to, and it just,
Yeah.
I liked that message in the film, even if it wasn't, I think,
It
as impactful as it could have been.
it did kind of fall apart by the very end of it, but even then the message still came through,
Yeah.
particularly when the first victim gets trotted out, and the authorities' first thought is, oh, it's a plague, it's a virus, it's not, it couldn't possibly be anything else, and they very promptly cordon off the building.
Mm.
They don't want to take the time to actually explore what the real problem is.
They don't explore what the real problem is, and there's also the metaphor of like drug use. You have
Mhm.
characters who are constantly accusing the younger characters of being on drugs, even though they're like, harmlessly buying shoes or something.
Yeah, they
um
don't. Yeah,
and
they
and
yeah they don't even want to think, and yeah, they immediately have this prejudice that completely alters their attitudes and completely blinds them to a reason
mm,
of the fact that they're not doing anything actually harmful. In the end, they're just selling second rates or secondhand fancy shoes. That's all they're
yeah.
doing.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so back to, as you were saying, I mean, yeah, insects, spiders, they all provide a great outlet for social commentary depending on what you're dealing with. And I do think, obviously you're dead on with them and kind of what that was talking about with communism and, sort of our fears
Mm.
being incorporated there. Um, I'm trying to think of what the first like really good commentary in spider horror was.
Uh,
uh,
you know what?
not,
That's actually kind of funny. I actually would say probably. I mean, I think it would actually maybe be infested because I don't
yeah.
really know any other spider movies that. I think they just relied on the fact that spiders, by their very nature,
I,
are so damn terrifying that they don't really need any kind of allegory.
Yeah,
That,
I think it's like a subconscious thing with us, because
yeah,
spiders in mythos, I think they're, you know, just the very idea of them you see kind of pop up a lot through human history and the way they're using mythology and everything, because spiders
Mhm.
are sort of, they kind of represent like different things, like on one hand they're sort of like creators of worlds and art,
Yeah,
with the way that they spin these webs and everything, which is why I love that, even though even though most people hate the giant spider in Stephen King's It, I think I think it's an appropriate metaphor in the sense that it's like this weaver of worlds and everything, and this eater of worlds. But yeah,
yeah.
on the other hand, they're in
They are a
arachnic
omnip the
Draculas.
well, they are a yeah, that's I think another aspect of the fear. And what I going back to what I said about knowledge, when you
Mm,
know what spiders actually do to their prey, that in and of itself is horrifying. And just the idea that they encase them in the cocoons, insert English could speak, I do. Inject a inject a digestive enzyme into the body so they are digested from the inside out, unfortunately meaning that the prey is still alive while it's happening.
yup.
And then they basically, yeah, just drink them from the insides out. Ironically, there's only a few there's only a few spider horror movies that have portrayed this with anything resembling accuracy. Very few. One of them is Spookies.
Which is not the source that you think that would come from, but
Yeah, you wouldn't think it.
which by the
No, I
way, I think I said this the other day on Twitter. Spookies, the Spider Queen, is my Madam Web.
Oh yeah, yeah, you did, and I think I retweeted it because I was like, thank you.
Yeah, it's
Actually,
just
and
such a
also,
great spider.
well, massive credits to them also for employing. Well, the reason why the Spider Woman was Asian was because that's the Yorogamo, which is in Japanese culture is the spider
Hmm.
demon,
Right.
and spider demon is usually commonly a woman. So I was really, it's like you never think that there would actually be a demon from another culture in a movie called Spookies with
Yeah.
farting mud monsters.
Yeah.
But
It's a terrible movie, but I
but
love it.
I adore that movie. But ironically, that's one aspect that I loved about Sting is that that's one of the few Spider movies that actually very vividly
Mm,
and also beautifully graphically portrayed that's how spiders kill their prey. Like the whole bit
right.
where Sting paralyzes the woman, actually goes into her, and very clearly is eating her from the inside out. I was like, I have not seen a spider movie do that.
It's
And
pretty
it was pretty
gruesome.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The other one that I would say that actually did a fine job in terms of showing how spiders hunt is Eight-Legged Freaks.
Oh yeah, Eight-Legged Freaks is great because I love that that film incorporates so many different types of spiders.
Oh yeah, actually, I'll give it to them. The way they portrayed the trapdoor spiders were actually the most terrifying of all. I mean, you're seeing people getting
Yeah,
dragged underground, and I'm like, that is horrifying.
right. Just the
That is
idea
probably
you're just walking along, minding your own business, and all of a sudden this
and
fucking eight-legged monster just comes out of the ground, grabs you, and that's it.
and then drags you down. I mean, on Instagram, funny enough, the algorithm I guess picks up on it for me, but they actually have like arachnologists with like footage of watching spiders eat their prey, and some of them just like hop out and just grab it and just pull right in.
Mm-hmm.
So that in and of itself is terrifying. So yeah, eight-legged, and the whole sequence where the jumping spiders
Oh yeah, where they're
are,
chasing them on the dirt bikes. It's great.
yeah, which is funny
Eight-Legged
because
Freaks it's underrated in my
it
opinion.
really is.
I
It
feel
really
like it's
is.
one of those kind of forgotten movies, and I remember it vividly because I was a teenager at the time it came out. So for me, it was like, oh, this is awesome! Like this is exactly what I want at the
Yeah,
time.
I was excited about that movie. I saw it like 4 times in theaters. I loved it because, and I love the advertising campaign did not lie to you as to what kind of movie that was going to be.
Oh yeah, no, they
Uh,
sold it
Yeah,
exactly as is. And I mean, fuck it, you
yeah.
got fucking David Arquette starring in it, which
David Arquette,
and
which is
this was post Scream, I think. So it
yeah.
was nice seeing him starring in a horror movie.
Well, even better was that he was the right kind of leading man for this kind of movie,
Hmm.
for exactly the right kind of movie. And you had but even better, it wasn't just him. You had a great quirky ensemble cast of characters who were all of them are infinitely lovable.
Yeah.
That you really did give a shit about all the way through. It's just a legitimately sweet movie with just some really great spider representation. The thing about jumping spiders now I find immensely funny is that yeah, big, giant like that, they're terrifying, but when they're in their actual size, they're actually kind of tiny and cute. That's
Hmm.
the funny thing about them. In fact, one of my favorite TikTok accounts is someone who actually raises jumping spiders, and she does these amazing little comedy voiceovers with them. And they're like, there's one of a little spider on a battery unit that's in the cage, and the person's like, "No, no, no, you're fine. You're fine." But and the little spider's like, "The floor is lava. The floor is lava." I just you
Adorable.
never think. Yeah, it was kind of adorable. So
Well, that's what's fun about Eight-Legged Freaks, right? Is like
yeah,
so if we're talking about infested is arachnophobia but scary, Eight-Legged Freaks is arachnophobia but fucking hysterical
oh
because
yeah,
it
yeah,
is not. I mean, it's maybe trying to be scary here and there, but it's mostly just really fun. And there are a lot of
yeah.
moments where like the spiders themselves are making little like like they're making little goofy sound effects. Like
Yeah,
it's kind of like critters with spiders. Like it's
yeah. A little bit of critters, a little bit of gremlins. I know for me,
yeah.
one of my favorites is the spider that gets dragged behind the car, and you hear it go like, ow, ow, ow.
Yeah. No, it's a
I was
great
like,
movie.
that's
Anyone who's listening to this, you've never seen Eight-Legged Freaks, it's a lot of fun.
and you know what? I'm even optimistic that arachnophobes could watch Eight-Legged Freaks just because.
I
Well,
think so. I don't think it pushes too hard on the arachnophobe
mhm.
buttons. I mean, there's definitely stuff in there if you're an arachnophobe that'll freak you out, but
I think it also helps that the CGI on that one is, and I get the vibe that it was deliberate, but the CGI on that one I think was deliberately
well,
cartoonish.
well, this was also 2002 when all CGI for the most part pretty much looked
Yeah,
awful.
that is also true.
And it definitely has not aged well in any way.
That is also true. Though I gotta love one thing about some filmmakers who make these movies. A lot of them, and I would love to see interviews with Sebastian Vanacek about his thoughts about Infested because it seemed
Mm,
like he we seem to just keep gravitating back to Infested. But this is actually kind of lead into another thing.
yeah.
He seemed to employ what he knew about the things that people feared about spiders. And actually, another filmmaker that did that to great effect, and many people still widely consider it to be the greatest giant spider ever portrayed on film, Peter Jackson,
Oh yeah.
when he
With
made
what is it,
Shelob.
Shalob or Sheila? Yeah.
Shelob, yeah. And one thing about New Zealand, and even by extension Australia, as everyone knows, is the land that tries to kill you. Uh, the most lethal, most venomous spider on the face of the planet, as far as we know, is the funnel web spider. And the one thing about the funnel web spider is that that is the Wolverine of spiders. That thing don't give a shit where it is, what it is, and if it is in your vicinity, you are either going to be brave and stomp on that fucker, or you are going to run like hell, because that thing will come at you. That thing will say, "Come at me, bro."
Yeah.
And Peter Jackson himself is openly attested to being an arachnophobe, and so he knew that when he's making these movies, like, fuck, I'm gonna have to do this sequence, aren't I?
Well, and maybe that's why that sequence is so effective.
That is exactly why it is. He employed, and he actually had to watch footage of funnel web spiders, and he was so freaked out by the way it moved. If you watch the way Shelob moves, it moves like in rapid spurts, especially when it's doing the whole part was chasing Frodo through the lair. That spider is like moving like in very jerky, very sudden motions.
Well, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but he also did a really good job with it in Khan Skull Island, if I remember right. The sequence where they kind of go down. I is that when they go down in the pits that there are spiders? I know there's a spider sequence in it.
Well, Kong Skull Island, there is a great spider sequence in that one. Actually, one, I got to give love to that sequence. But no, the one.
No, wait, I'm thinking of something different. Never mind.
You're thinking King Kong. Well, no, you're thinking Peter Jackson's King Kong, where funny enough, that sequence was recycled from a deleted sequence from the old 1933 film, which was made, and the footage exists of it, but it never was in the final cut. But they actually cut it out apparently because it was too scary. But Peter Jackson's like, I don't know about runtime. I'm going to put it in.
Yeah.
Fuck runtime. I'm putting that in. But oddly enough, that was like the most memorable sequence in that movie. I like the movie. So, but yeah.
I do too. I think it's great.
But it wasn't just spiders in that sequence. Actually, that one just had a whole hierarchy of bugs that I would definitely never want to meet. Come across the corner. I mean, the freaking worms eating very slowly and sadistically eating Andy Serkis alive. That in of itself was just terrifying.
Yeah, keep me the fuck off that island.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's go ahead and talk about like some other creepy crawlies that are also really terrifying. I mean, them is one thing. I mean, just allegories aside in them, but even let's talk about Empire of the Ants or anything like that. But just the nature of what ants do and the way the cool thing about ants, and this is because I'm an Ant-Man fan, big Ant-Man fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck you all. The Quantumania was not that bad. Just wasn't that great.
I think Quantumania would have been awesome in the 80s when we actually cared about making good sets and didn't just throw everything on a green screen.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. I don't know. As an Ant-Man fan, there was some things especially as a Scott Lang character, I felt like there was things missing. But anyway, that's another genre. But the thing is about ants, and yeah, we're gonna have to keep talking about it, but Ant-Man actually does do a good job showing the amazing things that ants can do when you get a bunch of them together all at once. So ants already on their own, and I even remember a horror film. I don't even remember what it's called, but there was a ant-related horror film where just a swarm of highly venomous, I don't know if they were venomous ants or just the fact that they were like a form of fire ants that were just, their bites were like crazy painful, start swarming I think it was a hotel or something like that. And I remember one of the most terrifying sequences, I think it actually killed the kid, where a kid like runs out and he's like covered in them and just has to jump into the pool. And I think a kid dies or something like that. But ultimately, their only solution to save the day was burn the building.
That's all you can really do in the end, right?
That's all you can do, pretty much. So the thought that bugs that as the size that we know them, if they could if you get enough of them together and they're all united in the endeavor to kill you, that's horrifying in and of itself, because these bugs could do some pretty awesome stuff on their own relative size, but you put them all together.
Well, they're like, I guess they're like zombies in that sense that, on its individual self, like, one ant is not going to scare you too bad. It's one ant. Just like one zombie, you don't want to be around a zombie, but you can handle that, but it's the idea that there are so many that if you really, what is the number with how much bugs outnumber human beings on the planet? There's a certain percentage, but it's billions and billions and billions, right? So
yeah.
So I think it's part of that idea too, and just that you literally are swarmed. It's not there's not a lot that you can really do physically to fend off a swarm of killer mosquitoes or ticks or spiders. It's you're just flailing around wildly. It's not going to do much.
Yeah, it ain't gonna do fuck all. I mean, I actually watched a film recently called Mosquito State, where a guy ends up kind of becoming harmoniously connected to the mosquitoes and actually starts like
Interesting.
controlling them. And that thought alone, just the idea of living in a place with mosquitoes and actually living in harmony with them is weird enough. But just the idea that you could control the swarm
Hmm.
of these bloodsuckers, I mean, that is another aspect I would never want to fuck with. But I mean,
Well,
one
it
alone
reminds
is
me
it.
of how what's her face and Phenomena can control all the bugs around her.
Oh yeah. I was sad about that. I was like, that was the most interesting aspect of that movie, but then it just focused on just being a Giallo. So it's like,
Yeah, they don't
yeah, it
really
drove me
do
crazy.
much with it. I do think it's a really cool Argento movie. Like for some reason that one always kind of pops up in my head as one of my favorites, even though I agree it doesn't do enough with the bugs.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, yeah. Meanwhile, you've also got other bugs that have also grown to inordinate size. I mean, there was the deadly mantis. Was a
mhm.
classic Burt I. Gordon class. Was a Burt I. Gordon one. I know and love it from Mystery Science Theater 3000. I love how they just kind of. I don't know if they were just throwing darts at a dartboard to pick a bug.
I mean, well,
It's a,
it's what happens with everything, right? Is like once you get a few of these successes like them,
yeah,
all of a sudden everybody goes, "Well, we need a giant bug movie now." So
yeah,
it does kind of become like a dart throwing process, just like with animals. Like you've seen almost every predator you can think of put into a
yeah,
horror film as a monster. Like it just, yeah, at a certain point, we're just looking at every bug and going, "All right, how can we get roly polies in this thing?" Like.
yeah. Oh my
Which,
God.
as I think about it, I can't think of a really good like earwig horror movie. I've seen good episodes of certain things. So like there's one of my favorite anthology episodes of anything is from Night Gallery. Have you ever watched Night Gallery with Rod Serling?
No, no, I missed episodes of that one. I watched like maybe one or two episodes, but not.
Okay, so any of you listening that are fans of the Twilight Zone and Rod Serling, definitely go check out Night Gallery. That was kind of like his darker, more horror themed Twilight Zone. And there's a lot of great stuff in it. One of my favorite episodes, which it bums me out, I'm kind of blanking on the name of it, but it's basically about this guy who's I think if I remember right, he's kind of falling for this woman that he works for, or he's like obsessed with her and he wants to kill her husband. So he ends up hiring this guy to put this kind of earwig into the husband's ear in the middle of the night. And what it's supposed to do is be this really horrible, painful death where the thing like eats through his brain essentially on its way to the other side of the ear canal. And long story short, the guy ends up putting the earwig in the wrong person's ear and puts it in the main character's ear. And so, he's then the rest of the episode dealing with this thing that's slowly killing him. And I'm not going to spoil it how it ends because it's pretty great. But
Hmm.
um, but yeah, no, it's just all the little things that they can do. That's the other thing is they're so tiny. They just show up in places that, I think that's the other thing that really freaks me out about bugs is that, as opposed to like, I don't know, a wild boar, they get inside of you and in places that
Yeah,
you
they
don't
could burrow
expect.
inside you, and yeah, they
Like I'll
burrow
never
inside
forget.
you, and
Yeah, I'll never forget finding a tick in my best friend's ear one time after we
oh
we're
yeah,
we're playing around, and it's like, okay, well now, sorry, bud, we got to take a match to your ear to your ear canal to get this thing out. Like,
Jesus.
and then I would
I
hear
was like,
stories of like, oh, people finding them on like their testicles and stuff, and it just, oh.
oh God, yeah. I wonder if a lot of that is why there is such a thing as, and I actually did, even though there is like a all-encompassing name for the fear of bugs. I mean, insect
Mm.
phobia is more generic, but entomophobia is the overall fear of insects. But apart from arachnophobia, which is of course the most so popular, they got a movie named after it. There's actually one called acarophobia, which is specifically a fear of biting insects. like ones that are known
Interesting.
to, ones that are commonly known to bite or sting. So mosquitoes, bed bugs, fleas, kind of fall in that heading.
Mm,
Actually, with that in mind, well, and then there's apophobia, which is the fear of bees, and
mm.
there's a there's a bug that I know we've seen. I know we've seen very like giant bees portrayed on film, but mainly in more fanciful fare. Like I think like Honey I Shrunk the Kids, and even I think there was an adaptation of Jules Verne's uh, I want to say Lost Continent. What is the one of the island?
Oh God, I know what you're talking about. I can't
Oh, the
say the name
Mysterious
of.
Island. The Mysterious Island. There you
Yes.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah,
There
I mean,
actually is a so we had the atomic age in the 50s, right? And then there was,
mhm.
speaking of bugs, the next, I guess, great generation of that was the eco horror of the 70s.
Oh yeah.
So you saw a lot of stuff there. And speaking of bees, one from that era, which I honestly haven't seen it probably since I was a kid, so I couldn't tell you if it's good or not. But the 1978, I think, The Bees, it stars John Saxon. But
I think
that
I
but
remember.
that
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, I think I
yeah,
know the one you're talking about.
but that's one with just like regular killer bees. I don't recall them being like giant or anything. It's just bees.
I think I remember it. Didn't it resolve with the main character kind of sacrificing himself by getting in a bee suit, hanging from a helicopter or something like that, like letting the bees like kind of swarm all over him so he could get him into a
Yeah.
contained. I remember he gets into a contained location, sprays pesticide to kind of contain the bees or
Hmm.
something like that. I remember there was another one called The Swarm,
Yep.
uh, which came out, which I think that was the one that ended with this kind of absurd idea that they discover that the bees are trying to communicate with them or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's another one I haven't watched in forever, so I couldn't tell you. But
Yeah,
just you
the one
saying
I
that is like, oh, well,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I kind of love it when they go a little out there with the concept. I mean, there was Empire of the Ants, which they
Hmm.
already made, which that one in itself was crazy, just in terms of the fact that these are giant, chemical induced ants that are attacking people. But then you find out that the ant queen is capturing humans and making them slaves by spraying a pheromone in their face to turn them into their acolytes. Which I'm like,
As you do.
I was unaware of ants having that particular ability. I did not know they did that.
Insects, man, they're always surprising you.
Yeah, but then actually no, the one that I saw recently, which was kind of outrageous, it's and not only that, the title of the movie is a disastrous misnomer. And you're gonna look at me, you're gonna laugh when I mention it. Fucking frogs.
Yeah.
Frogs, man. I mean, bad enough it's scary. It's scary enough having to look at Sam Elliott without his power stash, but I mean the fact that every death except for the finale death involves every other bit of fauna in that swamp but frogs.
Yeah, a movie named Frogs that really only somewhat has to do with frogs.
Yeah. And even funnier is that they're kind of comedic deaths too. I mean, the first death in the movie has tarantulas. I can only imagine. I guess they were trying to like substitute Spanish moss for spider webs or something like that, and they were like kind of hinting at the idea that they were basically like cocooning him and like eating him. But I'm sorry, I'm a Floridian. I know Spanish moss when I see it, and I'm like, that is fucking Spanish moss. Are you trying to smother? Are the spiders like no? And then just draping them in Spanish moss and just trying to smother them to death with it.
Hey, you use enough Spanish moss, and
But then you got lizards like deliberately knocking over chemicals in a greenhouse.
yeah.
I
I
mean, these
mean,
are
so many of those from back in the day are just like, obviously they haven't aged super well, some of them.
yeah.
uh,
Well,
one where I don't know how much this relates to. Well, I guess it relates.
it kind of does.
One
I bet it does.
where even though I don't like the director as a person, Squirm is super effective.
Uh,
I don't know
you
when the
gonna
last.
be the worm face.
Yeah, like Squirm's interesting because Squirm, like, it's a silly movie in some respects, but the actual horror elements of it are really fucking effective from what I remember. Like, just the idea of like someone coming out of this giant pile of worms, and they're all hanging off their face, and it's
Yeah.
Some of that
Oh,
stuff really got me. Like just the whole living room full of worms. Like it becomes like a pool of worms.
yeah. See, for me, I watched it on Mystery Science Theater 3000, so I didn't get a chance to watch all the
Okay.
really good graphic sides of it. But even then, just the mere suggestion, and I will say credit to the movie is that they kept inserting up close shots of worms, like with their
Hmm.
mandibles coming out a
Yeah.
bit more, really kind of illustrating that, yeah, worms, if they got aggressive, probably could bite you, probably could, and just by their very nature, the fact that they are designed specifically to burrow uh,
Hmm.
in under the ground, and yeah, if enough of them swarmed on you, probably could like dig into your flesh and stuff like that. So
I think
there's
that's
some
part
good,
of the terror with it is it's like it's like Hitchcock's The Birds in a sense where I think we as humans just have this underlying knowledge of if for whatever reason all of this group of particular insects or insects as a whole just decided, you know what? Fuck humans.
yeah.
We would be
If they
screwed.
decide to yeah, if they decide to rebel against us, yeah, it would be humanity would be screwed. And even worse is if they grew to any sort of size where we are pretty much similar size to their predators. I mean,
Mm.
I credit to Gandalf for being able to make friends with the eagles, because eagles those size, those little, we'd be like
Yeah, you're
field
bird food
mice
to
to
those
them.
eagles.
Yeah, we're bird food to those fuckers. Actually, and I wacky enough, it's kind of a mediocre giant bug movie, but it was Jack Shoulder's Arachnid that made a very
Mm-hmm.
keen and astute point. There is one safeguard to why there can never truly be giant bugs. Now, for those who do not know, bugs do not have a endoskeleton like we do. They have an exoskeleton. It
Yeah.
is a pretty much an armor shell that contains their innards. Well, if bugs did grow to any sort of particular size, they would. And funny enough, the only thing I've seen that actually tackled this and nailed it was Doctor Who, in the episode Arachnids in the UK during the Jodie Whittaker era,
Mm.
where a spider got so big that unfortunately, though its sheer weight exhausted it so bad that it ended up asphyxiating.
Poor
Uh,
spider.
yeah, it actually was sad. Well, the doctor being the compassionate character that they are, they looked at this like going, this creature didn't ask to be like this. And this creature's not killing out of malice. They're killing because it's their nature.
Right.
It's like, and here, yeah, they did a good job making that kind of sad. But point being is like, that's the thing that would actually keep safeguard us, is the fact that it, uh, insects would have to evolve in a very quick and spectacular fashion to be able to grow to any sort of size. To definitely nowhere near as fast as it did in Infested. That was the one thing in Infested that made me go like, "What?" I
Yeah,
mean, I know
I
spiders
think they
multiply.
I mean it's a movie, so whatever, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
they grow to those sizes within like mere hours.
yeah, they do. Well, like over the span of a day, and I'm like, firstly, usually an egg sac doesn't hatch for like I want to say maybe a couple days or something like that. I think arachnophobia was more accurate in that regard. But the
Yeah,
idea
that was
but I
maybe the
did
one
like,
issue with Infested where it's like, it's trying to be realistic in some regards, but it's really hard to kind of maybe buy into some of the logic of the movie.
yeah, though I did like the reason why they said, and this would definitely count for one thing I have heard, is that paleontologists in their exploration or in their uncoverings have discovered anything fossilized of bugs, finding out that the bugs were way bigger. And I love that Infested actually kind of addressed this, the idea that certain species of bugs would, by generation, depending on the predators that surrounded it, would grow to a size that they could
Yeah.
combat against that predator.
Well,
So I
that's
liked how
why
they,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, go
So I
ahead.
liked how they tackled that. I liked how they used that element to justify the spiders getting huge. I was like, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's why personally, I find it a little bit curious to see that we are seeing. I mean, I don't want to call it like a new age of spider or insect horror because we're not there yet, but I think
Yeah, we're
that
not.
but I would really like to I feel like we have to have some kind of new era of eco horror coming, especially considering where we are with the world.
Yeah,
And that's
I
one
definitely
thing
did.
that I
Yeah.
think I've considered is like, you know, uh, we you can start to theorize that considering what human beings are doing to the planet, that maybe certain species of insects would begin to evolve to combat us in that regard.
Yeah,
So,
or even better. And the deadly mantis actually is a good. And I wonder if the next franchise I'm going to bring up, which I think might hit under this, the origin of the deadly mantis in the movie is like it was a giant primal mantis that was its natural size in the age of dinosaurs. It was frozen, and then it, of course, due to global warming, or actually due to actually atomic testing heating up the globe, it melted out of its glacier and was allowed to run rampant. Well, another franchise, especially going back to worms, and I can't believe I didn't put this on here now. I'm just glad that our conversation led to it. Uh, Another species of giant worm that came out of the earth, and we discover as sequels went on, was actually Precambrian life forms. Oh, you know where I'm going with this. Yeah, we got to talk about Tremors.
hell yeah. Oh my God,
Yeah.
Tremors. What a fucking movie.
Oh, what a fucking series, man. That is just a
to me, I'm not going to go on a rant on this, I promise. But to me, the Tremors encapsulates what I, growing up in the '90s, loved about '90s horror. Is '90s horror to me was like the blockbuster horror age, where the horror movies just felt bigger and more cinematic, and just they just felt like the perfect kind of movies. Because you look at Tremors, it's scary, it's fun, it's got romance, it's got this, it's got that, it's got fucking everything you could want.
But even better, going back to our core subject,
Yeah.
is that the idea of a giant worm is, especially the way they portrayed here, is terrifying, because all the times you see people getting eaten by the graboids, damn, that looks horrifying. It's just, the sick part is, if you go into some of the aspects of the dark web, you're going to find some fetishists who actually get off on this idea. I believe it's called vor. I think it's called vor, where people actually get off on the fetish of like of people like, ooh, imagine getting swallowed whole or something like that. Ew.
Yeah, I mean, no kink shaming or whatever, but not for me.
No kink shaming, but that one is like, well, I guess it's a praying mantis scenario. It's like, I hope it's worth it, because I'm pretty sure your swim in the digestive pool is not going to be as pleasant. But anyway, just the way they portray like anything getting eaten by the graboids is just terrifying in and of itself. It just seems painful. And even then, you're being pulled under the ground, which that in and of itself is terrifying, because being buried alive is just is a way that I don't think anyone.
You're mixing a whole lot of fears there with how the graboids kill you. Because it's not like the sequence that's actually really terrifying is when the doctor and his wife die. When they're in the middle of the desert in the middle of the night, and like first the radio gets sucked under the ground, and then he gets sucked under the ground.
Well, their generator does, and then
right, and then she's just trapped in this car with the whole damn car being pulled underground, so she can't get out because it's going to eat her if she does, and she can't stay in because she's getting buried alive in a fucking car. So it just great movie, and really effective.
And from what I heard is that they want to take that sequence even further, where she actually busts out through the windshield and climbs out through the hood. But unfortunately, right when she like gets off it, the graboids grab her and pull her underneath anyway. So it's like they want to take that sequence even further. But I think they decided that was just a little. And I wonder if they actually did film it. I'd have to get the Arrow Video Blu-ray to find out if they actually filmed it. But I think they said that. But I think they said that this is not that kind of movie where we want to be sadistic. Let's not be sadistic. Let's just be scary. Let's be horrific. This sequence is already freaky enough as it is. We don't need to be sadistic.
Yeah, I think it's the right decision in that case. There's a very fine line where you kind of go too far and you sort of like ruin, I think, the suspense and horror of it, to where you're just going like, yeah, okay, now we're just really trying to throw whatever we can at you. And there's definitely a fine balance. I think it's hard to find that balance sometimes with horror. People don't realize how it's like comedy, it's comedic timing. They don't realize how difficult it actually is to find the exact right moment of where you cut.
And actually that leads me to, and I love what you're saying about the idea that we do need to get back to a eco horror as something that really needs to be focused on, particularly given the state of the things. I think the major reason why that's going to be really hard to do, and that's why I'm really loving that we have movies like Infested that came out, is that I think the problem is, as fun as all these B movies on Sci-Fi Channel and on from the Asylum and everything like that, as much as fun as they are, it does have this effect that does kind of diminish people wanting it and actually being scared by it, because I feel like it's kind of made people not take the idea seriously.
Well, that's why you got to make something like Infested that comes out and says, "Hey guys, remember, spiders are pretty fucking scary, actually." Because
spiders can be
because we've been. I mean, you can probably type spider into Tubi and just find like a whole bunch of bad spider movies,
And I have, and
I've got a list here of like, and not saying that these are bad necessarily, but they're not invested, looking at things like Big Ass Spider and Ice Spiders and like all these other
Big Ass Spider is a freaking treat.
It's fun.
It's a treat.
It's fun, but it's not as scary, so I agree with you. I think that they're definitely
though I gotta give sorry, you froze up there. Sorry. No, I was also gonna say, I mean, for all of its faults, I actually will give Itsy Bitsy a bit of credit in its portrayal of a spider. They actually did a lot of the movement aspects of a spider, like especially the jerky movements and something like that. They really nailed that. But even then,
it was good. It was like a kind of nice little precursor to Stamen Infested, because I think that came out in 2019, 2020, 2021,
something like that.
Sometime recently.
Something like that. I think for me, the only thing that kind of derailed that movie for me was that the emotional side of the story just didn't feel like it connected. It felt like a different movie, and then here's a giant spider. That's where that's the big thing I think Sting worked so well, was the fact that they were able to do well with the emotional storyline, with the core characters, with the fact that she raised the spider because she didn't really have anyone else. The spider was her friend for the longest time, and then and it ends up putting her at odds with her family. I was like, I liked it. It seemed like they handled that angle a whole lot well.
Right.
A whole lot better.
But no, so I agree with what you're saying, but I do think that all it takes is one. All it takes is like something like Infested. If Infested is going to do well enough with its Shudder premiere, which I haven't heard how it's doing necessarily, but if it does well enough with the Shudder premiere, you could easily have other studios looking at it and go, "Oh, spiders are scary again," and then you'll have others going, "Oh, maybe insects are scary again," and so it just, these things go in cycles. It's just
really
like the because you could argue that the 50s maybe ruined insects in a sense, because we got this big overload of giant bug movies, but then the 70s came around and was like, "Hey guys, this shit's still scary." Like
I think it was in the I see where you're going with this one. Go for it.
Well, so correct me if I'm not going this the way you thought, but yeah, like one good one that came out in the 70s in terms of spiders was Kingdom of Spiders with Will Shatner. And that one itself was a nice precursor to arachnophobia, because that one also used real spiders. I think mostly tarantulas in this case.
Oh yeah, they were all tarantulas.
Yeah. And so that one, like, it's kind of funny. It's hard to take William Shatner seriously sometimes, but the spider terror is but the spider terror is pretty effective in it for the most part.
In that one in particular, I did, when I sat down and watched that one with riff tracks, I was actually kind of really taken with, well, first off, I was impressed by how everyone was so natural handling these spiders. I mean, there's even one bit where William Shatner's like, with a live spider. I'm like,
yeah, that's commitment, man. Not something I can do.
Yeah, well, I will say this. I have always fancied the idea of, in a controlled environment, getting a chance to actually handle a tarantula, because it's a known fact, tarantulas are the one spider that's a house pet.
And they're gentler than people think.
Yeah. Oh no, that's the thing. Yeah, they are actually they actually have been known to be very affectionate to humans. In a way, they're kind of like snakes, where snakes are just they crawl up on you because they like the warmth, and a lot of times can be actually very, very very warm, very, very docile animals. So
Yeah.
I always wanted to, and actually, ooh, that's kind of leads me to another thing we could talk about with the phobias that people have towards bugs. They actually do have noted cures, specifically exposure therapy, hypnotherapy, and cognitive therapy to
Mhm.
help people alleviate these fears. I think it all really comes down to what are you willing to do in order to alleviate these fears.
Sure, and part of it too is, I mean, we're not going to blame movies here, but I think that we do get misperceptions throughout society just from the way people talk about things, from the way they're sometimes perceived in certain media. And so, like snakes, for example, I mean, there's the common misconception that snakes are slimy. They're not slimy.
No,
They're
they're
not.
smooth.
They're very smooth and scaly, yes, but not slimy.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the similar. I'm glad you brought this up because it's similar with a lot of insects. Is that yeah, they scare us because of how they look or move or act or whatever,
Yeah.
but a lot of it is misconceptions, like a lot of these things are not going to bite or hurt you unless you provoke them.
Hmm.
And like tarantulas, people, those are spiders that I think most people are very terrified of, but like you mentioned, they're actually pretty docile creatures.
Yeah.
So
I mean, sure, the idea of anything swarming up and rebelling against us is terrifying. And I will say the ending of Kingdom of the Spiders is pretty damn haunting.
oh yeah, just the whole, if I
Yeah.
remember right, just the whole town covered in cobwebs and everything. And
Yeah. Basically looking like a spring morning in Australia. Uh,
yeah.
and actually that was a creepy thing. I did see this one news blurb where like overnight, all of a sudden, like swarms of spiders just caked an entire like plane in
Mm,
cobwebs, and no one knew what the hell motivated it. And I remember
hmm.
and I was like, I can't even imagine what led to this. I mean, I always thought spiders, arachnophobia had said spiders were cannibals,
Right.
and given the fact that spiders by their very nature are apparently omnivorous, well, first off omnivorous, but apparently they're also just consistently hungry, like they live in a constant state of hunger,
Oh, that
that
sucks.
it would not surprise me in the least that they would be cannibalistic. But
Mm,
just to know that yeah, spiders can swarm like they do in infested and in arachnophobia, that just the idea of creatures that are consistently hungry, that are just always, just the idea of a whole bunch of them all at once just swarming on you. I think
definitely makes the
that's
skin crawl.
that in and of itself, I think is the biggest thing. But I also think people's fear of snakes and again, going back to acaurophobia, the idea of biting, I think we're also
Mm,
just terrified of the notion of having to experience the pain of being bitten, and also just the consequences, because unfortunately people don't have an index in their head of every single species. You
right.
know, the first I'm pretty sure if you get bitten by or stung by a bee, bitten by a spider, bitten by a snake, I'm pretty sure your first major thought is, oh my god, is this thing poisonous, is this
Yeah,
thing
for sure.
venomous?
Because they're, and that's the thing too, is like you said, not everybody has a photogenic memory or even has ever seen a picture of the different species that can harm you.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you see a spider, I think your first thought definitely jumps to, oh, is that one deadly? Because
Yeah.
because the deadly ones are all over the place. I mean, black widows and recluse spiders were everywhere where I grew up, you know.
Yeah.
And you never know if you're going to encounter one, and a lot of times you might not even be able to tell what kind it
Mm-hmm.
is until you're up close. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
I think that's inherent in the fear for sure, is that you just don't know what the consequences are of that particular species.
yeah, and it would also kind of lead into vindication of the concept of exposure therapy, or just the
Mm,
idea that you, if you take the time to learn and to take the time to understand, then it's easier for you to take it when you get confronted with it. You know
mm,
that it you well, first off, you'll know to recognize certain species of spider when you see them, so you know, okay, giving you a wide berth, yeah, you do your thing. Or alternatively, it'll teach you the right way to handle it if you run into it. Yeah, again, to the credit of Jordy and Infested, doing the method of the card and the thing, that is exactly the way you take care of it.
right.
It's just, yeah, you just can't get past the anxiety of
Yeah. Which I was going to
yeah.
mention earlier is kind of funny because that's how I am. Like I'm very much a pacifist in a lot of ways, and even when it comes to bugs and these things that I'm terrified of, I won't kill bugs. Like I won't
Yeah.
squash ants, I won't kill spiders, anything like that, unless it's by accident. So that was one of the things that Infested got me with, was like the broomstick thing, for example, right? Because there are times where
Hmm.
like maybe there's a spider on the wall, and so I try to you know get it onto a paper towel so that I can put it in a
Hmm.
glass or something,
Yeah.
and you're worried like, oh, am I going to touch it, it's going to run across the paper towel onto my arm, or
Yeah. And then it's funny. It's like, and then you go around, and I will say I love watching the behind the scenes of anything involving spiders.
mm,
Like even on the original Spider-Man, the guy who I think it was the guy who was the spider wrangler on that one for the opening when Peter gets bitten. I think it was the same wrangler who worked on arachnophobia. The species of spider that they used for not the general. The general was a Goliath bird-eating spider
mm,
in arachnophobia, but the ones that were like the spawn, the ones that like swarmed out, those species was a species called Avondale spiders. And
okay,
those, the reason why they were so commonly used, there was a multitude of reasons. One is that they were actually notoriously the most friendly and the most docile breed of spiders, but they were also the most easy to control. They were the easiest to predict or to be able to manipulate their behavior. So that's why, so they were always able to get those spiders to move in ways that made them that worked great for what they needed of them in the camera.
mm,
Um, but alternatively, the other reason why Avondales are so popular were a good choice was because their particular form was very odd compared to others. Because if you notice, like their legs like were of a very interesting length compared to others. It was almost crab-like, the
right.
way they're yeah. So they chose them because looks are deceptive, even though they're like a notorious. And I've seen the trainer. The trainer just lets him just crawl all over him, and he just like, is like petting him, being very
That
affectionate to him.
spider wrangler, that's a hell of a job.
Yeah, and you see the guys, and they're so casual with them, and just the way I mean, sure, I could be in the same room with them now, but I would. There's always a part of me wanting to level up and
Yeah.
be able to like do that specifically.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get to that point. I have gotten to the point though where like, my wife is not the same as me. Like Chris will kill a spider if she finds one in the shower, but
I
she
got
but she knows I don't like that, so she'll come to me first. But I have gotten to the point where like, like if I looked up and saw a spider on my wall right now, I'd probably just be like, all right, man, you go off and do your thing, you're fine, just don't bite me.
yeah.
Like most, I think only if I absolutely was for sure that it was a venomous species, then maybe I'd try to get rid of it, not kill it, but get rid of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I have, so yeah, I have reached the point where I think maybe it's just a maturity thing as you get older, is
Yeah.
and start to take some of these things that we've been talking about into account. Is it's fine, it's just a creature doing its thing.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about it,
It's
it's fine.
yeah. I mean, it is nature. In the end, this is
Yeah.
us versus nature, and ultimately, well, we say it's us versus nature, but in the end, it has to be us and nature.
Right,
So,
and people forget that is like we share this planet, and that's what the eco horror boom was all about. Is like, you
mm.
share this planet, so take care of it, or every other species here is kind of justified to suddenly be like, hey, humans, fuck you.
Exactly. Our planet too. You're
Yeah.
burning down our house.
Hmm.
You're burning down our house. We gonna have something to say about it.
Right. Which is always so fun to me. I think about this a lot, not to detract, but or get off track, but I think about this a lot, where we had that big eco horror boom in the 70s, and then everybody was like, global warming, what? Who cares? It's like
Yeah.
we had all of these movies and all of this discussion going on about it. And then somehow like
Yeah.
Reagan or whoever came in and all the conservatives just decided, it's not a problem.
And then the 90s came back in, and that's when like
Right.
we were actually like trying to be earth conscious again, but then here comes
Yeah.
the next
Next
generation of
generation of
anti.
stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think we do definitely need, well, no, actually in the 90s, what we had, that's when we had the eco, where the hero was the eco warrior character.
Hmm.
That's when you have movies like, well, pretty much the Roland Emmerich boom of
Yeah.
stuff like The Day After Tomorrow, or stuff where the hero is like all about the environment. or even movies
Mhm.
like, I guess you could even say Congo was kind of like an eco horror thing. The idea that all our technology, all of our, tech wise, and ultimately in the end, we're no match for a freaking bunch of pissed off gorillas.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, that can easily be pacified by a signing gorilla that with a talking gauntlet. Yeah, it's like,
I mean, the
God,
funny thing about Congo still is that the hippo is the scariest part of the movie when the hippo attacks,
because it's true.
because
You
those
don't
things are
mess with it.
fucking fierce.
Yeah. Um, I suppose now I guess we've really kind of covered a pretty good layer here. I feel like another side we should definitely focus on, especially when we're talking about eco horror, is the idea of man trying to mess with it. Not even, and I'm not talking like accidental, like them or Tarantula, where, well,
Mm.
then again, it's the idea of us messing with it, messing with nature to fit our own needs. And as a result, creating like these horrible mutations, which kind of come back to bite us. I mean, actually, there was a weird one. Well, a mosquito. There was a mosquito. Well, it was called simply mosquito, but if memory serves, that one started because we were injecting them with alien blood or something, or yeah,
Yeah,
and then
it's been a while because that was, I'm trying to remember. There was
yeah,
Mosquito with Gunnar Hansen in the early
yeah.
90s,
Well,
which
and then there was this one called bug, where it was the
mm,
species of cockroaches that because of, I guess it was genetic tinkering, these bugs were actually able these cockroaches were able to start fires,
mm.
kind of
Okay,
thing.
this is the other one I was remembering is I was getting Mosquito and Skeeter mixed up.
Yes.
Skeeter was another one I think from a year before where the mosquitoes end up transforming because they get exposed to toxic waste, as you do
Yeah.
in these horror movies.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I think the best one that's an example of man messing with things and ending up biting us in the ass. Unfortunately, it was one that was horribly derailed by studio gerrymandering, but it's one that actually does seem to have fond love from audiences anyway. Mimic.
Oh, I love Mimic. I
Yeah.
understand Del Toro's I
Dissatisfaction.
yeah, I understand his dissatisfaction with it. It was his first studio film working here in Hollywood, and of course, he went from making these really great independent films to suddenly having to deal with Hollywood bullshit.
Well,
uh,
let's say it for what it is. We're having to deal with a Weinstein.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, having to deal with those idiots. But
Mm,
I think that I have a similar feeling for Mimic that I do to Alien 3, where it's like I totally understand Fincher's hate for
yeah.
it and even some fans hate for it. But to me, it's like I think both of those movies to me came out really well considering everything that happened with them. And
Mm.
so Mimic is one of those where like I think it's a good movie despite the bullshit that happened around it. I enjoy it a lot.
At the core of Mimic, I like the idea that this isn't just people playing God for the sake of just I want to transcend nature, I want to dominate nature. These are
Yeah.
people This was a desperate times, desperate measures situation. People were dying. They needed to do this.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, because they unleashed this thing, which yeah, solved their problems, unfortunately created a new one
Yeah, it's
as a
interesting
result
because
of it.
it gets away from the mad scientist nonsense of like the 50s and whatever. And it does do that thing that I always find interesting where it's like creating one problem by solving or creating another problem by solving one, So
Hmm.
which honestly has been going on in this kind of uh subgenre within horror forever. I mean, even going all the way back to Godzilla, it's like
Oh yeah.
the original Godzilla, he gets created through the atomic radiation and everything, but then they also have to combat it with another terrible thing that could potentially cause, dangerous things to happen, which it eventually does in that franchise.
Yeah.
So no, Mimic's an interesting approach in that, and it does do a really great job of kind of I think sort of discussing the fact, like we've been mentioning, of how we share this society with insects, And in the case of
Hmm.
Mimic, they're coming up to the surface and
Yeah,
mimicking us and becoming us in
and
a way.
even and even lends the idea of certain species evolving to mimic the predators, and
Mm.
what if it happens that the predator in question that they're mimicking is us, and then
Right.
ultimately
What
we
happens if they decide that it's us?
yeah, exactly. Then it's like, how do you fight that? Because because humanity, by comparison, especially with all the species that we have talked about throughout the course of this podcast, and I suppose this is a good way to wrap up our discussion, but it's the idea that mankind, the only reason we're on top of the food chain is because we have resorted to our own means to either evolve or forcefully develop to a point that
Mm.
it has put us. It's just our I think to paraphrase Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, just nature selected us to be the dominant species, and ultimately the time's going to come when nature says that, all right, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
And what if that time comes? Or actually, no, here's a better quote. Nuclear war comes, death, we will be dead and gone. Keith Richards will still be there with two cockroaches. Inevitably, the time, yeah, smoked your uncle, you know that. But yeah, that's the idea. That's why we always say, cockroaches are going to inevitably supplant us because they're the one species that has learned to adapt
Yep.
amidst all of our bullshit, and actually has learned to thrive because of our literal bullshit. You know,
Which
so
I want to make sure I don't forget to mention it since you bring up cockroaches. The Nest from the late 80s is a good one.
I did have it on the list. I haven't seen it, but I do know that it was on my list, and I was hoping you'd bring that one up. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one that does some good cockroach terror. And he even gets a little insane towards the end, which I won't spoil what goes on there, but it's
Mm,
some good sci-fi horror in that one.
exactly. Exactly. So I think so obviously the main conclusion, I think we can definitely safely conclude with everything that we discussed, is that the core thing that people are terrified about the nature of bugs is that they are a species that bugs are just something that are so aloof from us that even though they're minuscule, we can't predict them, we can't understand them, and we don't know how they're going to behave in relation to us.
Mm.
So would you say that that's the reason we're so terrified of them?
Well, for sure. I think it's why I think it's why we often interpret when you consider alien species.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we try to put alien species into like some sort of image that we can perceive, it often tends to, I think, skew towards insectile or
Mm-hmm.
arachnids because I do think that we look at those species as so alien from us and so different because they don't have emotions, because they don't, act in the ways that we understand. So, so yeah, what you just said, yes, absolutely. I think that's why that's why we
Okay.
view them that way.
Awesome. All right, Dan. All right. So to cap it all off at the tail end, let's go ahead and have some fun. Go ahead and give me your top five deaths in a bug-related horror film.
Oh God, deaths.
What, you thought I was going to give you to ask your basic top five favorite movies? Ha!
I mean, well, I gotta think for deaths, but let me think here for a second. So why don't we just say this? Maybe these aren't my top five, but these are the five that are coming to mind right away. Is
Okay.
so and in no particular order. So mosquito, I vividly remember a guy getting the proboscis or whatever you call it stuck into his head and having basically all of his fluids and everything just drained out through the top of his
Wait a
head.
minute. What do you think when you're saying mosquito? Are you talking about the movie within the movie in the movie Popcorn?
I could be, but I'm
I
pretty
think
sure it
that's what you're
happened.
thinking about,
But
which
I'm
I'm
pretty
totally
sure it
fine with.
happens. But I'm pretty sure that happens in mosquito as well. Which popcorn? Well, actually, no. Popcorn predated mosquito, so maybe mosquito is still from popcorn.
It's
Either
possible.
way, so why don't we just say both of those?
Damn, you stole one of mine.
Hey, you can have the same ones.
No.
Let's see another good one. Um, well, I guess a similar one would be from Starship Troopers with the brain bug at the end that
Oh, good
sucks
one.
what's his brains out through that spiky tube. Um,
Seeing a pattern here thus far.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's just something about sucking out brains that really gets to me. The Mist, I don't
Oh,
remember like a specific death, but the entire sequence where they're in
the
the
drugstore.
where they're in the drugstore and they find all these bodies with the spiders, and the spiders are bursting out of some people that are still alive and everything. That definitely gets, my skin crawling. That was a pretty gruesome scene.
Hmm.
um
Let's see, that was three, I think. Was that
yeah,
three?
that's
Yeah, that was three.
three. uh this one's not a favorite kill, but I'm just thinking of Mimic and how I kind of love that for a Hollywood film at the time in the 90s especially, and being kind of like at the time sort of intended like blockbuster horror film. I was really surprised that they let him get away with killing kids. I don't know if you remember that scene in Mimic where the two kids die in the subway.
Oh man, it's been years since I watched it, but okay, the fact that I did that, I'm like, good on them.
Yeah, it was very unexpected to see that at that time, especially considering, Del Toro himself, where he usually sort of lives in like fantasy and stuff, although he's never really
Hmm.
had a problem with, kids dying in his movies.
Well, it definitely has no problem
um,
putting him in peril.
yeah, well, Pan's Labyrinth and all that.
That or Devil's Backbone.
Yeah, so I just remember that it's not a great kill necessarily. I mean, this kid basically he gets like one of the legs I think punctured through his chest, and he's like lifted up into the air. So it is kind of cool, but yeah, just I love it. It always sounds weird to say I love kids dying in movies. I don't love that, but I love when horror films go are not afraid to
Are
go
willing to
that
go there.
extra.
Are willing to go there.
Yeah, because it always just
Yeah.
makes you feel like for the rest of the movie after that anything goes, and I think that's when horror becomes really effective.
Oh yeah.
um oh, ticks is a good one. Ticks. Now, I hate the fact that in Ticks, the one kid that dies, I gotta remember his name because I'm totally blanking here, Alfonso Ribeiro. I hate the fact that he's the one.
Carlton?
Yeah, Carlton. I hate the fact
Oh.
that he's the one teenager that dies in that movie. Of course, you kill the black guy and all the fucking white kids get to live. But his death is incredible in that film. Sorry if I'm spoiling for
Uh.
anybody. Where basically he gets like infected. I don't even know how to describe what happens here. He gets like infected with the tick poison or something, and basically a giant tick grows inside of him
Yeah.
and like
There you get your
splits
Lyme
his.
disease.
What's that?
There you get your Lyme disease.
Yeah, and it just like splits out of his head with these giant pincers. It's like this transformation into like a giant
Yeah.
tick that just bursts out of him. It's fucking awesome. Um,
Uh, oh
so
no,
that's
sorry.
four.
Just yeah, yeah. Just for me, when I think ticks, of course, I think of Lyme disease because that's where it usually comes from is ticks. So,
Yeah, and
and
that's my
then when I
fear
think,
of ticks is the disease that you get from them. But
and then when I think of Lyme disease, of course, I go to Slither. It's like, yep, there. That's where you get your Lyme disease.
your Lyme disease. Yeah.
just a whole rant for Greg Henry is just for gold. All right, you got one more to go.
Oh man. We're not counting tremors in this stuff, right? Well, I don't
Sure,
even know
use
if
Tremor. Yeah, no, we talked about Tremors. You could put Tremors in here.
I don't know if it would count, or I don't know if any of the kills are my top five though. Fuck it, fuck it. I don't think if you really push me to it to like do my research and try to remember everything, but I'm just gonna throw Spookies in there because fuck it. Spookies the Spider Queen kill is great.
Yeah,
It's great.
it is
And I'm
great.
gonna give Spooky some love.
Yeah. We watch it spookies. It's a very
Yeah.
confusing movie. All right.
Makes zero sense, but that's okay.
Makes no sense. And I'm going to also play devil's advocate here, based on what I could see from the footage that did of Twisted Souls that made it into the movie. I'm not sure if the
Mm.
movie would have worked anyway.
Oh yeah.
It has great creature effects. Honestly, it's one of those ones where I think it was saved by the fact that it was such a mess. So I don't know.
For
Yeah.
sure. And actually, as I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna be remiss if I don't replace one of those with the cockroach death from Creepshow. That I don't know how I
Yeah.
didn't think of that first.
Oh, all these other ones. And that's fine. All right. All right, now we're on to me. Let's
Yep.
see. Well, one that I actually a spider movie that I enjoy because honestly I'm impressed with what they were able to do on the budget they had. There was a straight to video film simply called Spiders,
Mhm.
starring Lana Parrilla. And funny enough, for all the sequences of spiders like swarming and attacking people, very few times, and it's a scenario that you always see in Saturday morning cartoons, but this movie did it, where someone very simply perilously gets stuck in a web and the spider lands on them, and the spider, and also K&B Effects did the effects on the spider.
Perfect.
And the spider lands right on top of him, and you're seeing him like get skewered with its fangs. Basically, you're seeing the spider like devour this guy.
Really goes at him, yeah.
Yeah, really goes at him. So they really did a good job selling how horrible it is to be killed by a giant spider in there. So give it that. I already said Sting, the woman in the apartment. That was just outstanding.
Yeah.
And let's see. Unfortunately, a lot of these will be spider because again, I got this thing. I got this love of them. Yeah, you already did. Actually,
hey man, if it's in your 5, you go ahead and repeat one I said. That's totally cool.
It is in my 5. Well, nah. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I'd have to give the cockroaches in Creepshow. I feel dirty though, just because I know there's some. No. You know what? Gonna be absolutely one of a kind. I'm gonna say Squirm, and the ultimate death of the big lunk. The one who gets the worm face. Not the one where he initially gets the worms in his face, but the final one where he lands in the pool of the worms and just gets ultimately devoured in the end. That is a damn
horrific,
a freaking great one. Actually, 4th would be Them. Even though it's an example of off-screening to death, just the initial time when you see the ant on the hill and you see it with a rib cage in its mandibles, and then it drops the mandibles into a pile of bones. That's horrifying. Just to think that, yeah, just the idea of the ants just like, I'm gonna be an asshole. All right. Well, that was my 4th, right?
Yes.
You know what? People talk about Them all the time. I'm cutting that, and I'm going to get on my soapbox for a movie that I have defended all the way since it came out, and fucking the killer ants from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Because I actually did some research. That species of ant does exist, though it's local to Africa, but it does everything as portrayed there. And one thing that has to happen in every single Indiana Jones movie is that the big guy that Indy gets into the brawl with has to die a horrible, horrific death. And I'm still going to maintain he got the worst one, because he is being dragged by these giant ass ants into the anthill to basically suffer a living death for probably a good couple hours. All the other ones died instant. All the other ones died instantaneously.
That's true,
yeah, he gets eaten alive and dragged into the anthill. That is a great fucking ant. And
he gets the one that we actually haven't mentioned this entire time, which is the Beatles from The Mummy.
Yeah,
he gets the Benny death of being just trapped to be eaten alive.
Yes. So you know what? Crystal Skull is way better than people give it credit for, and I am willing to die on that goddamn hill. All right,
I think it's better than it gets credit for.
Oh yeah, back in my YouTube days, and if you ever want to see it, I'll hand it to you. I did a whole video essay about why that movie is way better than people give it credit for. But my final one, and it is entirely purely out of Schadenfreude, just because, dude, you are a dumbass and you deserve to die, was Interactophobia, when Dr. Atherton, this proclaimed spider expert, knows how aggressive and how venomous this species is, goes up to the damn barn with nothing more than a freaking Tupperware bin, thinking he is going to be able to just, I gotcha. No, goes up to the damn barn, actually alerts it, hey, by flicking its web, because that's how the spiders know that there's something in its web. Flicks it, and he's goes, supper's ready, come and get it. And then the damn thing launches out at him, and it's like, you deserve this, asshole.
Yeah, but it's always so great when the know-it-all scientist gets it like that.
It kind of is. Nowadays, it feels weird. Nowadays, given recent events, it's sad that I feel bad that it's Julian Sands, but ultimately the character is so damn smug that, it's like, I'm okay with this.
Right.
I'm okay with this. But for pure Schadenfreude, I am more than happy to see his character die. See his character die that way. All right. Okay. So that we go. That is our age-old fears talking about bugs. So to ultimately finish up, where can everyone find you?
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter, never calling it X, at Killer Critics. You can find me on any reviews I do outside of other sites. You can find on my own site at killerhorrorcritic.com. I frequently write for Dread Central. I have columns at Daily Grindhouse and Manor Vellum. Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll stick with that.
All right. And everyone else, definitely, if you enjoyed this, leave some positive feedback. That definitely helps get this some attention. And for any of our contacts, just listen to the outro. And if you want to explore the dark bowels of human imagination, ask yourself this simple question: what's in the podcast?